County commissioners demand resignation of preschool director over conflict of interest scandal. When two county commissioners call for a leading early childhood education official to step down, you know something big is happening behind the scenes. But here's where the story gets naughty. These officials aren't just airing concerns. They're pushing for an outside investigation, citing serious conflicts of interest that could shake public trust in Multnomah County's Preschool for All program. At the heart of the controversy is Leslee Barnes, Multnomah County's Director of Preschool and Early Learning, who also runs her own preschool in town, Village Child Care Enterprises, LLC. According to a recent Willamette Week report, Barnes's preschool collected a staggering $833,494 from Oregon's Preschool Promise Initiative, a program earmarked to support low-income families. What's raising eyebrows? Although the funding covered 63 spots for children, the preschool only had 9 enrolled. Ouch, that's the kind of math that starts arguments at budget meetings. Auditors for the Secretary of State flagged this as a textbook example of program spending gone awry, describing Barnes's preschool, codenamed Provider 2 in their paperwork, as wasteful. And this is the part that most people miss. The same person overseeing a universal preschool initiative is also profiting from a separate state program designed to benefit vulnerable families, all while her own school remains under-enrolled. Commissioners Shannon, Singleton, and Brim-Edwards aren't interested in waiting around for the dust or the investigations to settle. Both are urging Barnes to resign immediately, highlighting the apparent conflict of interest. Singleton put it bluntly, suggesting that Barnes' position as director gives her the power to make moves that could reduce competition for preschool contracts and potentially channel more public money to her own business if other providers are pushed out or shift programs. Singleton shared her concerns directly with County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson, who said she was extremely concerned too, instructing county leaders to launch an immediate review. Vega Peterson has doubled down, promising a wider look at county ethics policies, because as she points out, this kind of blow to the program's credibility could harm thousands of children and families who count on these services. Here's the controversial point. While the county chair favors an internal review, Singleton and Brim-Edwards say that's not good enough. As Brim-Edwards put it, we really need an external review, because otherwise it's like management reviewing management. If the goal is real transparency, shouldn't an independent group step in? Singleton wants this external investigation to address not only Barnes' actions, but also whether county codes around ethics are being followed by everyone in similar positions. Another commissioner, Megan Moyer, has joined the chorus calling for a legal and ethical review, though she hasn't outright called for Barnes to step down. Instead, she thinks Barnes should be put on leave as investigators do their work, and she expressed openness to either an internal or external investigation, depending on how rigorous and impartial the internal process would be. Meanwhile, the Preschool for All program is facing its own string of public meetings. Growing skepticism from state leaders, including Governor Tina Kotek, and a new urgency to show that finances and oversight are above board. Transparency is the one idea that unites all sides, with Moyer insisting that this program is under a microscope. We can't leave questions unanswered. But here's a question that might divide our readers. Should someone who runs a business that benefits from state funding be allowed to oversee that same funding at the county level? Is calling for resignation before an investigation is complete fair, or is it necessary for public trust? Tell us where you stand. Does this sound like clear conflict of interest, or an overblown reaction? Investigation reveals $3 million waste and fraud in Oregon Preschool Promise. A recent investigation has uncovered alarming potential misuse of funds within Oregon's Preschool Promise program, raising questions about accountability in early childhood education funding. The state's Secretary of State's auditors, prompted by a report from a concerned citizen, identified approximately $3 million that might have been wasted or misappropriated in the program, which aims to provide free preschool for children from families earning at or below 200% of the federal poverty line. The inquiry revealed $1.4 million in wasteful expenditures and an additional $1.5 million in dubious payments made to grantees. These findings resonate with issues previously highlighted by KATU investigations between 2022 and 2023, emphasizing the ongoing concerns regarding unfilled preschool slots despite substantial state funding. Resident Jeff Myers, who played a key role in these investigations, expressed his concerns. These funds are meant to support low-income families in accessing childcare and preschool services. It's disheartening to witness such a significant amount of money going to waste, failing to support the children who need it most. According to the management letter from the Secretary of State, the audit examined grants distributed from 2021 to 2024, intentionally omitting 2020 due to disruptions caused by the pandemic. The reported waste mainly originates from allocations made to preschools experiencing persistent low enrollment, or, in some cases, those that never opened at all. In a separate KATU investigation from October 2022, it was disclosed that the Division of Early Learning and Care, now rebranded as the Department of Early Learning and Care, had committed around $26 million to unfilled preschool promise slots. This figure was calculated based on documents procured through state agency records, comparing the amount granted to preschool providers and the reported enrollment figures. While the agency cited the pandemic as a major factor contributing to these enrollment challenges, it opted not to reclaim funding meant for unfilled slots, opting instead to preserve funding to support the preschools during uncertain times. Oregon has been grappling with a significant shortage of accessible preschool options for over a decade. Enrollment statistics between the 2020-21 and 2021-22 school years showed some progress, but many grantees still struggled with inadequate enrollments. A follow-up KATU report in March 2023 revealed continued spending on empty seats, with the agency's director recently granting an interview acknowledging the need for reforms regarding grantees with low enrollment. However, the management letter from the Secretary of State suggests that the necessary changes may not have been implemented, indicating that the agency's own goals for full enrollment conflict with the current policies, which do not penalize grantee performance until enrollment falls below 80%. The auditors reported that 58 out of 324 sites, approximately 18%, exhibited chronic low enrollment, discovering nearly $680,000 in payments that should not have been made to these providers due to their consistently low enrollment records. Interestingly, previous KTU investigations were based on the premise of achieving full enrollment, rather than adhering to the agency's 80% threshold, leading to significant discrepancies in perceived waste. Disturbingly, despite various committees recommending the termination of funding for consistently underperforming grantees, agency leadership chose to continue these subsidies. Some grantees even received additional funding without showing the requisite increase in enrollment. For instance, one grantee increased its available slots from 9 to 32, yet averaged only 47% enrollment in the preceding year. When functioning with expanded slots, the same provider saw one site with a mere 2% enrollment rate. Auditors noted, increasing the financial allotment did not equate to better serving children in need. The challenges don't end there. Agency staff had previously advocated for more rigorous oversight of poorly performing grantees, but these recommendations went unheeded. The audit report highlights that despite the evidence of waste, the agency's current regulations fall short of establishing effective oversight and accountability, ultimately undermining taxpayer funding intended for Oregon's youth. While the agency's response to the audit accepted many of its suggestions, it controversially contested the notion that chronic low enrollment alone should justify funding cuts. Furthermore, alongside the $1.4 million in waste, There were also concerns raised about $1.5 million attributed to potential fraudulent activity due to insufficient monitoring. Although the report suggests these expenditures do not qualify as waste, they still raise alarms about the transparency and integrity of financial management in the program. Issues cited included discrepancies in expense report submissions and a lack of enforced deadlines for these reports. The absence of a systematic approach to conduct random audits made it difficult to ensure that state funds were being utilized appropriately. Auditors encountered various unusual expense reports that defied standard financial expectations. For example, one grantee submitted payroll taxes amounting to $26,272 on $39,366 in wages, translating to an excessive effective tax rate of 67% when typical rates hover around 15%. Furthermore, there were unsettling inconsistencies in rent reimbursement requests made by a grantee, prompting auditors to flag the financial practices as suspect. The grantee, who purchased property used for preschool services decades prior, reported sharply varying rental claims, $4,000 one month and $8,000 the next, raising red flags about potential exploitative practices in handling public funds. The auditors also pointed out systemic risk indicators, such as rounded expense numbers or significant withdrawals later in the grant cycle, revealing potential manipulations aimed at maximizing reimbursements. They recommended that clearer indicators be integrated into the expense review process to identify such red flags more effectively. The report also addressed multifaceted funding structures preschools often rely on, such as a combination of federal and state resources, which can create complexities in auditing and managing funding to prevent overlaps or double-dipping between different programs. Notably, the Department of Early Learning and Care is reportedly planning to address these funding overlaps by June of 2027. In addition, a clear concern arose regarding grantees who may have claimed compensation from federal COVID relief programs while simultaneously submitting expense reports for funds garnered from the Preschool Promise Initiative. This type of financial stacking was highlighted in KATU's prior investigation of a particular grantee who leveraged both funding streams for a limited number of preschool slots, raising ethical concerns regarding the integrity of their funding claims. Secretary of State Tobias Reed expressed appreciation for citizens like Myers, emphasizing the importance of transparency in state agency investigations. He stressed that these investigations are non-political press to ensure that taxpayer money is utilized effectively in support of Oregon's children. Our mission is to guarantee that every dollar is spent efficiently to provide safe, nurturing educational environments for our kids, without putting families under financial strain, he remarked. Despite these revelations, the agency opted not to participate in an interview, citing ongoing work on the recommendations outlined in the audit report. As we move forward, how can we enhance oversight and accountability within educational funding systems to ensure that resources are directed efficiently and ethically? What measures do you think are essential to prevent future occurrences of this kind? Share your thoughts below. Uncovering waste in Oregon's preschool funding, a shocking investigation. A shocking waste of taxpayer funds. How $833,494 meant for vulnerable children ended up serving just 9 kids. Oregon's Preschool Promise program, designed to support low-income families, is under fire after a state audit exposed staggering mismanagement. And the controversy hits shockingly close to home. Last week, Secretary of State Tobias Reed revealed 4 preschool providers wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars by claiming funds for dozens of unfilled classroom seats. But here's the bombshell. One of those providers is linked to the very official now overseeing Multnomah County's $500 million Universal Preschool Initiative. Public records confirm Leslee Barnes, director of Multnomah County's Preschool Early Learning Division, owns Village Childcare Enterprises, LLC, a North Portland preschool that received $833,494 in state grants between 2020 and 2023. The money was intended to fund 63 subsidized slots for children from impoverished families. Yet state data shows the center enrolled only 9 children during that period. To put this in perspective, that's over $92,000 per child annually, a figure that dwarfs typical preschool costs. And this is the part most people miss. Barnes's preschool continued receiving funds even as enrollment plummeted, from 33 funded slots in 2020 to just 10 in 2023. Auditors flagged this exact scenario in their July report, labeling one anonymized provider, now confirmed as Village Childcare, as wasteful. But here's where it gets controversial. Barnes defends the payments, arguing her center needed to cover fixed staff and operational costs during the pandemic, regardless of enrollment. "We did not operate wastefully," she insists, claiming compliance with state contracts. Critics aren't convinced. Jeff Myers, an education advocate who blew the whistle on the mismanagement, calls the spending an abuse of programs meant to help kids. The audit also exposed systemic flaws. Preschool Promise relied on self-reported expense claims with minimal oversight, allowing providers to bill for costs like salaries and supplies without rigorous verification. Shockingly, 53 providers were flagged for potential duplicate payments through federal pandemic relief programs. But the real controversy? Barnes now oversees Preschool for All, a county program funded by a tax on high earners, while her own preschool benefited from a separate state program. Though she signed a conflict of interest agreement, watchdogs question how someone linked to such glaring inefficiencies could lead a $500 million initiative already criticized for shifting goals and slow implementation. The county has launched an internal probe, but this raises bigger questions. Should officials involved in questionable spending practices hold leadership roles in public programs? And why did Oregon's oversight systems fail to catch this sooner? Barnes shifts blame to Early Learning Multnomah, a nonprofit tasked with enrolling families, claiming they failed to fill her slots. Yet the audit specifically criticized Multnomah County's enrollment hub for significant challenges, a detail that casts doubt on both the provider and the system meant to support it. Here's what's undeniable. Public trust is eroding. Preschool Promise providers billed $1.4 million in questioned costs, and the state referred multiple cases for criminal investigation. With Preschool for All sitting on $500 million in reserves, taxpayers are right to ask, will this program repeat the same mistakes? Now we want to hear from you. Should leaders with ties to mismanaged programs be barred from overseeing public funds? Is it fair to blame providers for low enrollment when support systems fail? Share your thoughts below. This debate affects every taxpayer and family counting on these services. Correction: an earlier version of this story mistakenly featured an incorrect photo. We apologize to Dr. Bahia Overton and the Black Parent Initiative for this error.